Hey everybody, welcome back to Fossil Games and our Civilization 6 tutorial series. On the last one, part 1, we just covered the main menu, in fact, and sort of the basics of game setup, so that if you're really brand new to the game, you had some basic idea of, what it is you're actually clicking on in the menu when you go to set up your first few games. And so we basically followed this process and came up with this. And in this video, we're going to be covering the UI, the user interface, and basically everything that you're seeing on your screen when you start up your first game. Um, but this video is also going to be a little bit broader than that because in order to understand everything that you're really looking at, you need to have a basic understanding of some of the main concepts of the game. So we'll be talking broadly at least about what your goals are and and how to go about achieving them in this game. Um, Sort of the basic structure, I guess, of the game and how to win. Um, so this is the screen that you see, this is the screen that you see, excuse me, when you get past the main menu and you get into your first game. Of course, it's going to look a little bit different every time, right? Um, but this is the main basic layout. Now here, this main area here, I don't know exactly what the technical term for it would be. The main not battle area, right? Because there's a lot more that happens in this game than just battle. But this is sort of the main part where you interact with the map and the world that you're in. Um, and that takes up the vast majority of the screen. You can scroll in and out, which is cool. You can even, whoop, let's be careful with that. Huh, I thought there was a way you could, hmm, might be a separate setting or something for this. I think there's a way you can like partially sort of rotate the map around for a second, and then as soon as you release the button, it flips back. Not super critical, right? You're probably not going to be using that a whole lot anyway. I know I don't, except for just a second here or there to get a unique vantage point on something. But that's more just for looks. Let's go ahead and start up in the top right of the screen. This is kind of where you have the most important things you need to know to go about controlling the game more broadly, right? So you have the game menu here, and this is where you can save your game, load a different one, learn more about the new features of whatever expansion pack you're dealing with, open up the game options. Um, you can retire, which basically ends the game and gives you a final score and logs it in your experience and everything. But it is technically a loss. So I'm not sure who does this or for what reason. Maybe if you do it, let me know. How come you retire? What is the point of retiring? I would love to know. You can restart a game, which basically means if you reach this screen, right, that we're on now, and for whatever reason you're unhappy with where you are, you can come back and click this restart button, and it'll basically generate a new random map for you, and follow all of the parameters that you entered in when in your game setup in the menu, but it will regenerate everything for you. So it'll give you a new start. This is where you exit the game, and if you want to go back to the main menu and do something else there, or you can exit straight to desktop. Here you can see what mods and DLCs and expansion packs and everything you have in play, and here you can see some of the basic settings that you have in place in case you sort of forgot. Wait a second, what level did I set this on? Or is this way? Game seems to be going really fast. Maybe I set it on the wrong speed, right? You can come in here and see those few basic things and the civilization that you've chosen to play as. We're going to return to the game and then pop over to this little question mark, which honestly, this is probably the most important tip or lesson of this video, right? This is called the Civilopedia, which is basically an encyclopedia for the game Civilization. Almost anything you want to know about the game, at least speaking in general terms, it's all in here, right? You've got so when we're just looking at like some of the this side menu here is just some of the basic things that are covered in the Civilopedia, and then you also have all of these other tabs that cover just tons and tons of different subjects. I mean, it must have taken them close to a year to write everything they needed to write, I would think, just to compile the Civilopedia, right? And you also have a handy little search tool here, so almost anything you have a question about, you could probably find it in the Civilopedia. I will warn you though, this isn't an exhaustive tool, right? So if you're looking to find out the exact mathematical equations that control combat, or um, there's even certain key abilities and things about the inner functionings of how things work that you won't find in here. Um, and so if you're looking to calculate the mathematical advantage here or there, or really get into the nitty gritty details, Google is much more of your friend than the Civilopedia, but this is a cool resource when you're getting to learn the game. Here you have the time, which thank goodness, right? I mean, if you haven't heard yet, this game is famous for giving players one more turn syndrome, which it's a turn-based game, as you probably know if you've bought the game, right? And it's known for being sort of so addictive, or not. Oh, maybe addictive is an exaggeration, but it's definitely people enjoy playing it to the degree that it'll be 2 o'clock in the morning, and they keep telling themselves, okay, well, one more turn, right? And then they finish that turn, and then there's something else they want to do. They got to accomplish something else before they finish. So it's one more turn after that, one more. So this clock there is sort of helpful to keeping yourself in check. Here you can see the turn number that you're on, and the year in the game. The game always starts at 4000 BC if you start in the ancient era, and it ends whenever you or one of the AI players achieves one of the victory conditions, of which there are 5 or 6. I think we'll go more into details in those in another video, and we'll discuss actually what the specific conditions are. Um, but you always start at 4000 BC. Now going over here into the other end of this top banner, um, the goal of this game we should discuss for a second here, just to make sure everyone is on the same page, right? The goal of this game is to build a civilization that in some way is more dominant than the other civilizations in the world, right? And so there's several different victory conditions, and if you can achieve those, then that means that you have gained dominance in some significant way, right? It could be military dominance, scientific dominance. And so the whole concept here is that you play as a historical civilization, a civilization and a leader that really exists in history that has its own unique bonuses and advantages, and you progress through history. And to do that, you research technologies, and those are acquired through collecting science points, right? And this is where you can see how much science you're accumulating per turn. You also accumulate culture points, right? Which you can see here, how much you're accumulating per turn. And both of these mechanics allow you to progress through a technology and a culture tree that unlocks new abilities. The culture tree allows you to unlock, in particular, new governments and new policies you can enact across your civilization. Here you can see the amount of faith that you're accumulating per turn, because religion is also a major part of history, right? And so your civilization can build up faith that allows you to do certain things in terms of religion, and you can even achieve a religious victory by founding a religion and then having that religion essentially converting the entire world to your religion, right? Here you can see the amount of gold you're accumulating per turn and the amount of gold that's actually in your treasury at any given moment. And with gold, there's no particular victory condition connected to gold, but you can spend gold on lots of different things, as we'll see later. Here, this is something a little bit more nuanced that you'll get into the more you experiment. This is diplomatic favor. It shows you how much you have here, that's the bigger zero, and how much you're accumulating per turn, which is the little zero. And diplomatic favor is essentially used in not in direct one-on-one negotiations with other civilizations, but it's more used in what's called in the game the World Congress, which is essentially like the United Nations, um, where different resolutions, different issues and topics come up for debate, and you and the other civilizations get to vote on them using your diplomatic favor. So it's basically a representation of your diplomatic weight in the world, right? Um, this is an indication of how many envoys you have, which are sent to uh, um, city states, which we'll go into more detail in another part of the game. But city states are, or in another tutorial video, sorry. But city states are an essential part of the diplomatic game that um, th- they are individual cities that are they do not belong to any other civilization. They're independent, but they cannot expand, right? They can't build settlers to go found another city. But you can win them over. You can win their loyalty by sending envoys to them. And so this is you can see how many by hovering over this you can see how many envoys you're how many points you're building up per turn, and this little zero here shows you how many envoys you actually have um, built up, right? That you can go and send to city states. Um, this is how you access the tech tree. Right? Click into that and you go into the tech tree and you can see it's quite long, right? You got quite a few technologies to unlock and discover as you continue playing. Here you can open the civics tree, which is something very similar, but you progress along the civics tree by accumulating culture, right? Um, Here, this is a panel where you can see great people, and since the latest update, you can also view heroes here, which we might discuss later. I haven't even really got to experiment them with them much yet. But great people are um, uh, basically the idea is that they are individuals, famous people throughout history who you can earn in different ways, and they appear on the map. Boy, this is hard to describe, isn't it? To someone who's never played before, who might not know exactly what these things do. Um, but yeah, they're essentially unique figures that appear on the map and give you certain traits and bonuses. And there you can see the progress that you're making to actually getting one, right? To attracting one to your empire. Here you can see all the climate information you need because global warming is a part of this game since can't remember now the name of the DLC. I don't know, but world climate is a part of the game now. Since the latest expansion pack, right? And here you can see CO2 levels, and you can also track and monitor different natural disasters that are occurring and what the chances of them occurring are. And as the game progresses into the later eras, this gets more interesting, right? As civilizations enter the industrial area and start pumping more CO2 into the air. Here you can see your governors, which are basically um, set up to be something like governors in real life, right? They're members of your administration that you deploy across your civilization. You assign them to specific cities, and um, they bring specific ruling, governing benefits to that city or to your civilization as a whole, and you can move them around. And you unlock these guys by going through the mostly through the culture tree. I'm trying to remember if there's anywhere you unlock them through the technology tree. I don't think so. I think it's all through the civic tree. Um, and Yeah, those guys are kind of cool to play around with. They add a nice little bit of strategy. This button, this is kind of fun. We haven't played anything yet, right? So we can't see anything here yet. But as you sort of achieve important things moving from the game, um, it'll show up here as a historic moment, and then by the end of the game, you sort of have a timeline of things that you've done throughout your history as a civilization. I'm a little bit of subjective opinion here, right? But I'm actually not a huge fan of the history timeline. I think the idea is great. I think they wanted you to be able to create your own story by playing Civilization, and I don't think the execution is perfect. But I will talk about that later, maybe as we see sort of how that's progressing. Here is a helpful little tooltip that uh, is essentially like a mini view of what you see when you go into the technology tree or the civics tree, right? This is showing you what you're currently researching and what civic you're currently making progress on, and you can adjust what you actually want to see in these two ribbons right there, because you don't have to have those open. Now, in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you got basically everything to do with your map, right? You have the mini map here, right? Everything that's sort of not grayed out, but everything that sort of looks like this map, as you can see here, right? You got like these sort of map icons and these squids and other cool stuff like that, right? That's all unexplored territory. So everything that's here and your current selected unit is going to be flashing right in the middle of the screen there. That's your mini map. Just helps you understand where you are, and it'll change and adjust to your situation as you discover more of the map. Here are a series of useful lenses that you can implement, and I won't go over every single one, but you can sort of get um, an idea if, let's say, I go on Settler, right? It overlays this new view onto the map to give you additional information that you need. So when you click on Settler, that's again, we'll look at exactly why later, but just so you understand what this is actually doing, this is giving you a view of the map that's more useful when you're looking to settle a new city, right? This is giving you information about the tiles you're looking at that helps you understand where might be a helpful place for you to settle. And so each one of these different lenses basically helps you in different ways in those terms, right? When you're looking at what decision to make. Um, Here you have map options, um, and it's a little bit different from the lenses, right? So you can see right now that um, we've got these thin little gray lines here, right? That very clearly set out uh, the different the grids basically of the map, because Civilization 6 is played in hexagons. It used to be the earlier versions of the game were just in cubes, right? So you could move in 4 directions. Here in this game, you can actually move in 6 directions around your unit, offering a little bit more variety to the game and making it more strategically interesting, right? So you can see the grid very clearly right here. And if we toggle that off, it removes the grid, right? It gives the map sort of a cleaner, more natural look to it. But I almost always play with the grid on, just to sort of have that real clear and obvious. You can have this little icon here, for example, showing you that there's a resource here. There's marble here. We can toggle that off. Um, Yield icons, we'll go over what each of these actually are, but these little icons right here, yields, that shows you what you'll get out of this tile when you're working it. We can toggle that off to make the map look really clean, right? So there's all different kinds of options like that that really let you set up the screen here the way you want it and the way you're comfortable playing. Um, these are useful when you're making plans for later stages of the game, right? You can place a map tack, and here you got a whole range of different options that aren't super important right now exactly what each one is, right? But you can just mark down certain things for yourself for later, right? To remind yourself a plan that you had, um, or something you saw on the map that you don't want to forget, those kinds of things. Um, Here you actually have a really cool little tool that they implemented here where you can search across the map for something. So if you remember the name of a city you saw and but you can't remember where it is on the map, right? Because this map gets big and there's going to be dozens, if not over 100 cities on the map, right? You can come here and search for exactly where you could search for the name of that city and go find it on the map that way. This toggles what's called strategic view. I'm not exactly sure. I think this is more just if you really need things even more well defined and clear cut. I almost never use this, but I think some people find it helpful. I see screenshots like this online sometimes on Reddit and things, so you can play around with that, see if that's comfortable with you for you. And then you can also expand this little mini map here to see the whole thing across your whole screen, right? Um, Now getting down into the bottom right-hand corner, this is a notification, right? At the beginning of each of your turns, you'll get a series of notifications that run up the screen this way, right? And so this notification is just telling us that we have discovered a continent, which also always happens on your first turn because you open up the map and it's basically telling you what continent you're on. And clicking on that opens up, you can see here our lenses, right? It opens up the continent lens. And so you can see what continent we're on according to this key. So Laurasia is the color purple, and that's the continent we're located on, right? And so this is, well, when we explore further and we discover other continents, it'll show you the clear divide between Laurasia and another continent. And it's good to know because there's certain mechanics in the game, certain special abilities and things that have to do with what continent you're on, and um, also just add another cool layer to the game. This button is where you cycle through your units, right? This helps you progress through your turn, basically. So you always start the game with 2 units. You start the game with a warrior, which is your basic military unit, right? That's this guy here. Cool little the guys with the clubs, and the primitive axe over here. That's your warrior, your basic military unit, and starts with a settler. And the settler's job is to found cities, right? And when a settler founds a city, the settler goes away. You have to build more settlers if you want to found a new city. And cities are the foundation of your empire. It's where you produce everything. Um, and yeah, it's basically, I don't know what to compare it to exactly, but it's your cities are everything, right? It's where you produce everything, and they give you everything you need to progress towards a victory. You produce buildings there, and military units as well. Um, and you'll see that the cities, they don't take up just one tile. They actually spread out across several tiles across the map, and it's kind of cool the way they do it. So the whole game is structured around cities. So the settlers are really important, right? And when you click on a settler, it shows you, first of all, whenever you click on any unit, right, this blue line shows you where they can move this turn. Every unit has their own movement points, and every piece of terrain here has its limits of its own. So this open terrain, like these plains, right, they cost 1 movement, right? So if my settler has 2, he can move across 2 of these in 1 turn. Because there's jungle on this tile, it costs 2 movement. So if my settler were to move there, it would take up all of his movement points and he couldn't go any further. All right. So that's that little blue line that you see. These little helpful tooltips here are basically where the computer suggests that you found a city. computer thinks this is a good place to found a city. We'll go over probably in the next video what actually makes a good city location, right? Because it's not necessarily what the computer suggests. Um, if you are a beginner and you really just want to dive in the game and start exploring, it's not a bad idea to follow this advice, uh, but you should know not to trust it every single time. Certainly if you want to start improving in the game, right? So this is the button that cycles you through your units. If you have a unit that hasn't used all of its movement points yet, this will take you to that unit, right? And then you can give it some orders. Um, this panel here changes according to what unit you have selected, right? So when I go to my warrior, it'll show me my strength and the movement points, and it gives me a few options here. I can use this button to move it. I can fortify, which gives me a defensive bonus. I could skip the turn for the warrior so that it doesn't do anything at all, or I could set it on alert, which we'll see later what that does exactly. Not super critical right now. But then when we go to my settler, you can see that this panel is completely different. And these are the actions I can take, right? So I can press this button to found a city with my settler. There's usually a little expansion icon here, and that usually just opens up the little button that you can use to delete a unit should you feel like doing so. Usually not a wise choice. You only want to do that if you're in a real pinch with money and a unit is costing you a lot. Um, so this whole panel here deals with cycling between your units, and also once you've given all the orders that you can, this is where you end your turn, right? There's another couple of key indicators here that this shows you. This shows you your progress towards a golden age. Um, so if the actual structure of the game is built around cities, the structure of the time of the game, so the timeline of the game is structured around eras. And that's something that we could see up here in this little tooltip, the era progress. You click on that, you open that up, and you can see how many points that you need to reach a golden age. And if you fall below that threshold, then you reach a dark age. We'll talk about how you achieve those things later, but just so you know that that's where that information is located. And you can see also the status of other civilizations you've met, whether they're in a golden age or a dark age, and approximately how long this era is going to last, right? So you know how much time you have um, to reach this point. And so this little, there's also a light that comes around here that shows you not a light, but like a color indicator that shows you how much progress you've made towards a golden era for the next era. So that's there. To the right here, you have a list of useful reports that right now are going to be pretty empty, right? Because I don't even have a city to show many reports. But you could see what your cities are producing, um, what resources they have access to, if they're happy, if they're growing, um, and here you have diplomatic gossip, right? So that's some of the basics there, and those are just useful pieces of information that help you run your empire. Here you can see your world rankings, so you could see um, where you match up, how you match up against the other civilizations in the game at the current time. Um, and so you have your world rankings in terms of the different kinds of victories you can achieve. And then you can look into these individual tabs to see where you stand on achieving the science victory, the cultural victory, domination, religious, or diplomatic victory. Right? That'll show you your progress on all of those. And then here, this is also a nifty little tool that you actually have to turn on in the game settings. I can't remember exactly what it's called. I'm curious if we can find that real quick. Interface, I'm sure that's where it is, right? Um, Show yields in HUD ribbon. That's what it is. You can hide them so that you don't see them at all, right? Or you can always show them. I usually have them on when I'm just playing the vanilla game. It's a useful bit of information, and it shows you not only your military strength, which gives you some idea of how strong you are, uh, and your how much of all of these yields you're producing every turn. It's the same up here, right? So that you might think this is a little bit redundant to have this over here, but then once you meet other civilizations, they'll line up here next to you, and you can see this information about them as well. And so then you get some kind of idea. Okay, here's where I match up, especially in terms of military strength. It's very important. Here's how I sort of match up against them, and um, yeah, that's important information to have as you go about playing the game. Um, so I think that's about it for this video. I think we're going to call it quits here. I don't want to overload you with too much, right? But I think that's a pretty good overview of what you're looking at when you open up the game, and what all these different tools are for, and how to access these different parts of the game. You know, as you sort of progress in the game, you start seeing pop-ups for era score, and you start seeing this will give you an idea of where to go and look for those things, right? Um, so I think in the next video, we're probably going to be talking about your very first turn, where to settle a city. Maybe we might even just talk about that specifically, where to settle a city, right? Because that's a huge topic in and of itself that I can probably do a 15, 20-minute video on. So we're going to start exploring some of those topics a little bit more. And in the next couple of videos, we might even start playing a turn or two, right? And then I want to do videos specifically about things like the different victory conditions as we start to see more about how the game works. So anyway, I hope this was useful to you guys. You can go back and check out my last video if you want some insight into what the uh, how to set up a game properly and what's in the game menu and what everything does there. You can subscribe if you want to continue joining me on this journey and learn more about the game. And you can click like if you enjoyed it, because that just helps me out and I appreciate it. So thanks for joining me, guys, and I hope to see you here next time for part 3 as we dive deeper into the game. See you soon. Bye bye.